nje from your side. Khawuthethe naye.
Khulu nokufuze iscreen.
Esiphi?
Jonga yabona besithethe yabona akathethi ngokumile. So
I'm saying nguye kaloku.
yenziwe nguye.
Licala lakhe.
Oh. Now your internet connection is unstable.
Yethu. Okay. Kodwa ngifake ile nto because ngikhuphile ku-Wi-Fi yabo. It's okay.
Now. And what do? Then never 1 2 and go over.
Okay.
Oh yes, loud and clear.
Loud and clear. Okay. We have just 2 minutes to go.
All right. Oh yes, loud and clear.
Loud and clear. Okay. We have just 2 minutes to go.
All right.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Joining us via various social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and also the Dr. Nyati or Dr. Fundi platform. Today, I have a special guest, a gentleman that I call the village shrink, Mr. Mteto. All right. Right. So Mr. Mteto Chemese is a qualified clinical psychologist, but he is now not a practicing clinical psychologist. I'll be having a lot of talk around why he is no longer a practicing psychologist. But, before I get to that, Mr. Chemese, welcome to the Dr. Fundi platform.
Like it's a great honor. I've been watching some of these talks honors or big up for the work that you are doing. I'm happy to be here.
All right. On a lighter note, the aviators, is it part of your branding?
If you share bright, and so I have to wanna maintain a light, ndingaphandle.
Okay, lovely, lovely. All right. Now, Mhlekazi, just to kickstart our discussion, this morning, when we woke up, we saw a post from you, which was actually an open letter to the president of South Africa, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa, or President Cyril Ramaphosa. But before you tell us about why you wrote that letter, can you tell us a little bit about you? You grew up in Umdanzane, but just tell us a little bit about you, your growing up, your influences, good and not so good influences.
And good afternoon to the people watching this, and thank you for your time. I hope you nice and warm. And yeah, so now I was born Umthetho Christopher Chemese, the son of Unzinzinzi and Unolulu. Ndingumtshana emakwayini, and mna ndinguSikhomo uRhudula uMhlatyana uZulu, ndisuka ngapha eQumrha. So I am a son of people classified as amaqaba and highly spiritual people whose belief system in African culture is very exciting and interesting. So I've been influenced then by their practices and so my upbringing is both an upbringing yobuqaba, but at the same time upbringing of inkolo yasepostile specifically, because they were parents abebekhonza epostile. So I come from a very, very strict background insofar as being a young boy growing up in Mdantsane, but I was not born in Mdantsane. I was born in Cape Town. There's a story behind that, but that's a conversation for another day. But a long story short, I was born in Cape Town 42 years ago. And I think when I was about 5, my mom came back to the Eastern Cape and then via eQumrha in Emzini. So from there, I was on the maternal side. So my early influences, my first memories from the paternal side, but the most significant emotional recollections that I have are from the maternal side. So my family from the maternal side also then moved to eQumrha, Mount Coke side.
Yes.
Then that's where my grandmother, Umam Nosini, Otleli Glamshaba was as we speak. Yeah. She's 102 on the 17th of November. So I am this person who grew up in Tanzania, but who was exposed to Ilali and farms. So that's who I am as a person. But I mean, I'm a typical township guy, Chris from Bar7, you know. So I did everything that young men or young boys did there. I was hunting, we used to swim, we used to have like pingo, we used to fight like from fists, because we're from Tanzania, but to knives, you know. And growing up, I've lost a lot of friends in the process, you know. So I suppose for me, if you asked me who I am now, all those experiences, they influence how I see myself and what I think should be done, whether as a professional psychologist or as an artist. Okay. I hope that answers you.
No, that's a good background. Good background. So you are a balanced guy. You've got a rural upbringing. You've got a township upbringing. So we are fit.
Basically. Yes, I mean, a friend of mine, usually tells me, hey, Mteto, you're so uncultured, like you've gone to school, but your accent and your love for the supports are like you only. So I've been accused of being stiff and backward, but I'm also progressive enough to know, but you know, there are certain problems about us being men that need to be challenged, and that has been the activism that I've.
Okay. All right. Now let's go back to the open letter that you wrote this morning for the attention of our president. Just briefly, why did you write the letter? Now let's go back to the open letter that.
Hey, Bella, if you asked me last night if I would wake up and write what I wrote, I would have laughed at you. I do not suppose there is one specific incident that triggered this, other than maybe for those who are curious, for me to wake up and write that.
Yeah.
Excuse me, my day is all. I received a call from a friend of mine, Patrick, facts from Guaten in Tanzania. It's like, hey, Jaman. In fact, he knocked at home. I was sitting at home in Tanzania, and then he knocks. He wants to borrow a speaker because and they are stressed. So he thinks at least a very nice speaker. So I've got a nice Marshall speaker, so it's good quality. So he knows that he needs a good quality speaker. And I'm like, oh, okay. Then I give him the speaker. But he lives next to, his home is next to a studio where I was going. So in the studio, I had a conversation with one of the best engineers, Moses. Moses has a son who's 2 years old, who's able to DJ and who basically can manipulate gadgets, and everyone is shocked and it's like, what the hell is this? And when I see this boy, rapper, he's 2, I'm like, so we're thinking about this 2-year-old's education because he's a genius in music. But anyway, so I was going there yesterday, and then I meet a couple of guys who are interested in education. And then we talk, we greet each other, and then Nepa goes home, and then I sit with Moses. So me and Moses were supposed to record a song that says, I don't know what I'm about to be. So I'm invited onto the song by this 2-year-old's mother, who unique has a song, but I'm being invited. It's produced by the father. So I'm like, okay, let's see what's happening in this family, because this is like a very odd family. Long story short, we ended up not recording that song and just talking about the killings that we've been seeing on social media of women, women being hanged, and that's work that I'm quite aware of because I'm involved in working with Amajita. So I'm aware of that. So I went to the studio and ended up talking about this thing for about an hour or 2. So we were very upset, Moses, because we were like, hey, Aseazi, what is it? What else should be done? Because it's a difficult conversation that when I look at it as Umteto, I see and I understand what women in South Africa are saying, especially Black women.
Yeah.
At the same time, my work, I've been working specifically with men, and men have things that they never talk about that I am privy to. And I'm one of those men myself, because the man I am today is not the same man I was when I grew up was 7, getting involved in all the things that people who are watching who know what young men get involved in.
Yeah.
So, but I also felt helpless when I was barely, and I suppose part of my difficulty also is that the man who raised me as a father passed on in 2000, and is one person I could really speak to, and he's not anymore, he's no longer alive. And sometimes I have these moments where I wish he was alive. Yeah. But I never talk about that. Only my therapist would know about that. So then I was like, okay, so who then should I just talk to? I just want to talk to someone. So I was like, okay, Mr. Ramaphosa, you are the president, people put you there in parliament, let me write to you. So that's how that thing, I didn't premeditate it, but I suppose it's a culmination. I mean, I've been in a space where I've just been worried about South Africa. So it was just coming from a frustrated point of view. That's why it's like that. So you could say it was free association, but also my views are known as an artist insofar as how I feel about the present government is concerned and governments in Africa. But that was not the person talking in that letter. It was Umteto just saying, hey, time I go blind, man. Can't I just ask?
If frustrations is you were done opening up and just downloading all that is inside.
But man, basically, yeah. And there was even a time I was like, hey, man, I feel so exposed, but people are responding on my WhatsApp. Are you okay? Because also I've been depressed, when because I told you. But I think I did also put on Twitter the fact that I was depressed. I mean, there's a few people who know clinically, like it's something I've battled with as a kid, but people wouldn't see it because it manifests differently sometimes, especially in boys than it does in women.
Okay.
So that also explains why psychology became a choice, because it's not like I thought of choosing psychology.
Actually, that was my next question, to say,
Yeah.
you are a qualified clinical psychologist. Let's forget about the fact that you've now chosen not to practice it, recently, but you are a qualified clinical psychologist. A lot of studying that you had to do to get your undergrad, to get your honors, and then to also get your masters, to be actually,
two internships, two internships, a counseling internship in 2000. Yeah. I've paid the school fees there.
Yeah. Why clinical psychology?
Well, I finished my first degree. I was 19 when I had my BA in politics and psychology.
Yeah.
And at 20, I was doing my honors in psychology. Now, that was interesting because I had an opportunity to either do honors in politics, honors in development studies, and honors in psychology. I was accepted to do any of those programs. And then I went to my mentor, Yasem Tanzane, Ubuzola Bongolo. That's the man you should thank for the little bit of Edinayo as a man, because he's the one who molded me when I was being in Lobongela growing up. Because
we're gonna get there. Yeah.
No, I was in Lobongela not as an artist, but as a person or performer.
Yes, I'm talking about that. Yeah.
So long story short, Ubuzola said to me, "No, man, Mamela youth, Mamela youth, man. I think there are very few black psychologists, so maybe take this psychology thing. Also, in the politics, there are so many black people in politics. Just take this development, you're passionate about it. So just take this knowledge on psychology." So that was the deal breaker, the deal maker for me to choose psychology. 1, 2. I suppose as I was studying psychology, the funny thing was that as I was reading these textbooks upon psychopathology, I saw a lot of myself in the symptoms. And for the first time, I was like, like, because is out, so you need to have 6 or more of the following, and then if one said, hey, 8 in Shemna, they can 8, and then like so it was a turmoil, because on the one hand, I have grown as a hard man, because ndikhule ndithelekiswa, so abakhulu abami ubhuti Mxolisi Bhalindlela noSiyabulela Tshona nabanye bebethanda undithelekisa ndibethwa, so ndiyilwe kubantu abadala.
And Tanzania being the mecca of boxing.
So you are expected to fight. I remember one of my late friends, Umatsipo, may rest in peace, for it. So when we were teenagers, Umatsipo, we started being told by bicycle town. So but because I am light confundis, I am expected to cook, so I'm busy cooking. Unfortunately for me, and then the tire bursts, and now everyone's like, no, like, and Umatsipo is angry, but no man bicycle, and I'm thinking, no, but it is a couple of and then this thing escalates, like, no, I'm like, and this is a bicycle, and then long story short, then this becomes a fight. So see, a good hour, and I'm thinking, and then because I was shorter than him, so he's busy chapping me. So you're expected to fight, basically.
Yeah.
So all I'm saying is then, all those things, when I was at school, I could then reflect on, hey, Ndingubani. So for the first time, I had to deal with who I am.
So you would say in your upbringing, or your early upbringing, you were socialized as a typical masculine, toxic masculine man, who must fight, who must be dominant, who must use the muscle, who must not feel anything, somebody who must not show weakness. Are you saying that's the kind of upbringing?
No, actually, not quite. I think I understand your question, but that's what a lot of people say.
Yeah.
But I understand that differently in the sense that if you grow in an area that has got violence,
Yeah.
by its design, Muslim Tanzania, like any other township, is not designed for the advancement of Black people, because it was designed by the apartheid government. That's why it's far from town, like, and it's got small roads, and then there's, you know, there are no amenities. You have to spend your money to go to town and for your labor.
On the highway,
So,
man.
yeah, I mean, that's true, but the highway is what it is because no one is thinking that, okay, highway is our CBD and therefore it should look like any other CBD, especially for a township that is second only to Soweto. But anyway,
Yeah.
Psychology is very important to the extent that it allowed for me to realize, but no, man, actually, the reason why bendikhuliswe into yobana pha ekhaya ndikwazi uzilwela was simply because I had to survive, because xa ungakwazi uzilwela, then you are prey elokishini.
Yeah.
That's designed by psychologists. I mean, I'm sure you're familiar with Verwoerd and them.
Yeah.
And what they did. That's what apartheid was. It was a psychological warfare. So what we see, the violence and everything that is bad, it was designed.
We're gonna get there. Yeah, we're gonna get there. All right.
So,
yes, no. I'm warming up to you. But anyway, all right. So that was your upbringing in Tanzania. Now, I got to know you maybe less than 10 years ago, and you were going by the name The Village Shrink.
Yeah.
Why the name The Village Shrink?
I think The Village Shrink, I think 2011, I worked for about 3 years in Mthatha, in Nelson Mandela Academic Hospital, under leadership of Professor Alonso from Cuba, a mental health unit. Salute to him in Cuba, the solidarity, because he did a lot of great work, Prof. And under leadership of Dr. Kamlashe at that time as a CEO before he left. So at that time, I always wanted to work in a space where people cannot afford to pay a psychologist. But Black people anywhere in the world, like they need to have access to therapy, considering the trauma that is designed by white supremacy. And yet the services are not available to people. So it's always been a conflict of mine. Remember, I say, so I always identified myself as whatever skills I have must benefit these people. So that's always been my thing. So when I was in Tata, I had all these fantasies of what I thought I was going to do. And then I was exposed to the most violent, institutionalized Black denigration. Even the Bone Tata, like, and Namazi, I mean, words will betray saying, what is it? Only my friends know because at the end event at the time. Long story short, Tata, because the OR Tambo is written as Imtatamos is a OR Tambo, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah.
Region.
It's in the OR Tambo region, yes.
Yes, and then for those who don't know, OR Tambo apparently is the poorest region in South Africa.
The poorest district in South Africa, yes.
Oh, yes, the poorest district. So you have a high concentration of people who are the poorest. And remember, I consider myself to be coming from a poor background, both in Tanzania.
Yeah.
So everything I had been taught in terms of the clinical diagnosis, etc., had to come to a window in terms of how you were assessing what was happening. I will make a quick example. I didn't know that Bizana was on the border of KZN and the Eastern Cape, and people would travel for 2 days to come and have you assess a child because they have to go to a clinic to get into an ambulance and then to get to here. And then umakhulu njebu senza a history taking akubuze. Danam ndicela apile because I've got my lunch there. At that time, they are trained. I was depressed at that time because I was going through a divorce at that time. So I'm depressed. So I was training twice a day, just for my sanity. So I was eating healthily, and then umakhulu zabona fruit yampa, athi umakhulu ucelela umntana. So it would occur to me, okay, if umntana is hungry, obviously umakhulu is hungry, because if umakhulu ebenekito, ebengazuba hungry umntana, because umakhulu are raising Black families for centuries, you know. So, and then I would see this thing and then wonder then about, okay, so as I'm assessing this person in terms of the prescripts of the hospital,
Yeah.
to what extent is what I'm seeing linked to the fact that there is no income in that family? And because the social workers do not go to that area, and when I call the social workers, they are in some office in town, and I'm like, but what is happening? So systemically, I was exposed to how structural violence insofar as what was designed by apartheid. But also now the contrast is that this is O.R. Tambo region, and everybody knows who O.R. Tambo is and how revered he is globally and his work. So if this is a region that is named in the name of O.R. Tambo, as somebody who's an outsider, I consider myself like, hey, I'm not a psychologist to work in a psychiatric hospital or to work in Bryanstein in private practice. Maybe I'm a psychologist who must be a village shrink because I am for this. These are my people. These are people where my family comes from. I want to go there.
You identify with them and
with them. They are me, I am them. I just happen to have gone to school because my belief system about being Umxhosa and a proud man of Umxhosa have not changed. Like, that's why I don't speak with an accent. Like, there's a student of mine who once said at vets, yo, when I'm dead, we have Bora. Like, I used to teach her second year. So I think it was also difficult that I was looking at her as a student and she hated that because like I would do that deliberately so that even if there's any romantic inclinations, you know, by your students, so that you don't even make an effort to have an accent. And I'm like, why should I have an accent? Because English for me is just for me to communicate. And in Umxhosa, I'm like, if you can hear my accent, then I'm happy. So what's the problem? So like I have so much passion, and this passion is linked also to training here. I'm AWC. Shout out to Rashid, community psychology teaching. Shout out to Gat Stevens, Umesh Bauer, Rafik Lockhart, Professor Anna Strebel, Professor Simbai, and all the people who taught us that. Because I used to ask this question, so if a person lives in Tangen village and is depressed, you're gonna give them medication and you're gonna give them therapy. But the fact that they live in Kukwin and they're unemployed is what is maintaining the depression. So how, as a psychologist, are we then gonna treat this, the cause of the problem? Can psychologists then be activists? And I mean, I don't have to tell you that psychologists, even in America, if you just Google psychologists in America, you're gonna see that psychologists are involved with the CIA in torturing people in warfare. So psychology as a profession is European, is Eurocentric, is American. And if it is that, it therefore means one thing. It is based and formulated using conceptual framing of psychopathology and what is mental illness that is foreign to us. That's a fact. So I don't subscribe to that as a person. I don't.
So basically, there's a conflict between your beliefs of right and wrong and some of the things that some of the people who are in that profession have done in collaboration with people who have actually oppressed others,
including black psychologists who have to survive. No, I don't blame them. I was one of them, including black psychologists who become what Frantz Fanon calls establishment psychologists, because they know what I'm saying is true, but very few students are prepared to go and work in Nganduli, because a lot of psychologists in this country, maybe 80% of them are white women. You can ask the Health Professions Council. I mean, this is public knowledge. People can Google this and they will see that I'm suspended and I actually want to be raised there because I am never going to go back there. I've done that thing. I know what it can do. There's something else. And this thing, I didn't have to go to school for it.
Yeah. Cool. All right. and you also call yourself Ndlobongela, which is more like a stage name. Why Ndlobongela?
All right. Well, for obvious reasons, provocative.
Yeah.
But Kwa7, where I grew up, we were known as Indawo Yezigebenga, which is a synonym of Ndlobongela. So we had Obutibetu who were supreme, were called supremes. So they were gangsters. So there was a lot of violence. So the place had stigma. So long and short, I wanted something that symbolizes where I'm from, but also that also symbolizes what my work is about, because I don't think young men and young boys have to do the things that we did to know that those things are wrong.
Yeah.
So the idea is that if I then call myself Indlobongela, I then need to be able to remind myself at any given moment in time, because the way I was raised is almost like a foundation of building a house, like a default position. I can be violent at any time because of who I grew up. Like that's like rational and logical.
So awuzange uqhubeke uhambile wayofunda psychology, but awuqhubekanga unala way yasemdantsane. You can be violent at times.
Well, I know some Tanzania. I mean, that's everywhere.
Being silly. I'm just being silly.
No, I know, but I'm punctuating the fact that is the struggle we have. It's the masculinity, because that seems to be the masculinity that is known. But our indoor, so even if we see and abantu and anyway, okay. One thing I didn't tell you. I'm actually finishing a book. I'm editing a book. So there's a lot of expansion on these things in the book. So people must not worry. So I'm not gonna spend time dwelling on some of. But what is important, I'm in a space where I'm reflecting, to say, okay, if I live to 1040, given where I come from, where I've lost my friends along the way prematurely through violence, stabbings and killings and gunshots. So if I'm lucky enough to have then gone to school, what is it that I can take from the knowledge, at least for the youngsters that are growing today, that they must not experience what we experience?
Yeah. Okay. So I've been looking through your timeline and looking at some of the posters of the events that you've been going to, as an artist now, where you're spreading message of healing via music and poetry. And one of the things that comes out there is that you focus more on you are a healing activist rather than a therapist. Just explain to me why you are actually lifting up the healing part.
Well, not all form of activism is progressive or healing. I'll make a quick example. We've seen strikes in South Africa where the workers will have a legitimate cause, that they're fighting for, but then in the process of them doing, they go and ban things, or they go and loot from women who are Black and our mothers. Some of the very people who are doing, they were raised by Abanda Batengsa. Or you see a community that has a legitimate concern, say, for instance, that they want a clinic, but they go and ban a library, like we see in Gauteng. MEC Lisufi, I wish he was an MEC of the Eastern Cape, or he could be a minister of education, so that his innovation and his way of doing things could actually benefit us other than Gauteng only, because while Lisufi is opening schools in Gauteng every month, in the Eastern Cape, we're closing schools every month. You understand what I'm saying? So it's the same government, it's the same ANC-led government, but you have this person who innovates in Gauteng and everyone, and we have been tweeting him to say, but MEC, what about us? So I'm saying, not all form of activism is proper, because I know as an artist, part of why I go to Ndlobongela is because like I say what I see.
Straight talk.
And I don't do that because I hate the people that I mention in my songs. I want what is best from them, because some of them, that's the only hope we have. For instance, if I'm gonna write a song, and then the second verse goes like, engqondweni ingxwabangxwaba ingxuba kaxaka ndiyagula ndibukela abarhunda bezithalela besinyusela intela kunzima nokusibhekela njengokuruzinza basixuthi zinza basitsala ngamatanyula emzantsi kuyasibekela siyazika futhi siyayela sihlala sifuna ukuphangela kunzima nokufumana intsula asinawo namandla ogqula izigigaba ziyondela nisenza amaphepho zindaba siyanuka siyalila akho malusi wokunika umkhombandlela kodwa ngethemba siyasimelela ondiyamo olukhuni bakhumbula uMandela mna ndiyazishaya ngomadikizela ngapha ngomalema uyantshontyela ngomhlaba uyabasela futhi ngathi sesizolwela nongcuka ithuba uyasinqinela ngomgaqo siseko imikhonto nemela nithi niyavuselela kodwa izolo uqedane nozuma bebenikhankasela nizinkintsela unazinqa umadonsela nizenza qhamqunzi ngobunikuni bobusela nisichayisela noThixo inene angekhe wanixolela. Ufundile, when I write that is because I am at pain.
Yeah.
For 10 years I've been a psychologist, in fact for more. So I've been hearing black suffering from people who could afford my services. I can see what is happening on the ground in the townships because I work there. And our government is just not playing ball, bruh. Like, Eastern Cape, I tweeted on the 7th of April, Bele. I put out there, ubana nangu umuntu ubusebenzile nyaniso. Indlu yakho kwabo ichile on the 7th of July last year.
Yeah.
The office of the premier of this Eastern Cape called him on the same day. The MEC of social development sent a social worker. Umaspala was the Eastern Cape, sent somebody. And Uputi was really hopeful. He says to me, I respond, don't raise your hopes because they might not come. Today is whatever, the 14th. I got a call last week from the general manager of human settlements from Buffalo City, somebody I know personally. He says this guy is going to get a shelter. They've promised. That guy didn't even get food parcel, a food parcel. And I am saying I WhatsApped our premier. Our premier, I WhatsApp, so I know they know. But what I'm saying is the system just doesn't work because this person, there's evidence. It's going to be the 7th of July. That house is still there. I see that house every day. Why?
Yes. So let's get to this one now.
That's the activism. That's the activism, Gabriel.
Yes. Because you are actually saying it's well and good to deal with the individuals who are presenting with psychopathologies. However, you feel frustrated that you can deploy the interventions that you have learned, to administer to these people. However, the issues that drive them to present with those, you find yourself hamstrung. So you are now choosing to go to the root of the problem and be an activist. That's what I'm hearing.
Except that barely. Then by going there, remember, I've worked for government, so I know what are the bottlenecks, right? I've worked for the NGO sector. I've worked for Soul City. These are like big NGOs for the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund. I've worked for Masmanyane, Women's Rights International in Islam. So I know how big international organizations work. I know the challenges from the NGO and whatnot. Now, when we worked at Masmanyane, I'll make a quick example. Masmanyane is helping women who are abused at many different levels. Like they are one of the best, people you can get in South Africa. Now, Masmanyane is taking a project to Tangen village or in Tanzania to some ward, wherever. But the problem I would have, the biggest problem that most NGOs have when they have resources is to enter our communities barely, because there are people elected in those communities to lead those communities. But those people, their priority without fail, barely. I'm not politicking. This is not a party politic bashing. Ward 20, people can Google this thing. Ward 20, there was a time Minister Zuma.
Yes.
She was deployed, Mamu Zuma. I think she was a chairperson in ANC. I'm not sure what she was then. But she was deployed nationally to come and audit the ANC branches, right? Do you know when she found out the ward where I'm from, Papa 7, Ward 20, is one of the most problematic wards. The same ward where I'm from. Like I'm talking politically, I'm not making this thing up. It's a fact, it's known. Even in Lutuli, it's known. It's known. Upumlani Mkolo, he knows that, but there's a problem, there's a regional check. Oscar Mabuyane, he knows. Omlibo Koboshane, they know. Everybody knows Ward 20 is not functioning. They send Ungumbanga there to confuse our community. Then they send another somebody else. Now we worked as activists now who grew up there. We work with whoever is the leader there, including Usisunok Pumla, who's the current leader that we spoke to. These things are frustrating, and we were telling our councillor, that councillor, as Tina, with the people that I work with as Masikule. we are not doing development work because we are interested to even be acknowledged. We are doing it because to not do it, it means we are complicit in a system that is oppressing Black people, because the skills we possess barely are rare. Psychological skills are a rare skill in South Africa, but we must take it to Ebantwini.
Yes, yes. Now,
that's what I'm doing.
Yes, no. And I think it's good. Now, you had a TED talk a few years ago, and in that TED talk, you actually said South Africa is in the mess it is in terms of violence and all the other social ills because after the negotiated settlement, we forgot to deal with unresolved issues or emotional traumas or past traumas, multi-generational traumas. And so we moved on as if those things never happened. And so now we are where we are, a violent society, we beat up our women, we're killing our women, road rage and all these things. And part of it is that those things were not addressed. So can you just expand on that? I found that very interesting. You were basically saying hurt people, hurt others. So yeah, just talk about that.
Thank you, Bele. Bele, it's not me who's saying that. It's the facts.
Yeah.
It's the facts, like cold facts. It's not me. Like I hear what you're saying, but I just want people to underscore the fact that it's not me. It's not my idea.
Yeah.
It's the facts. Whatever you look at is pointing to violence, right? It's the facts. It's not me. So there's a couple of things I want people to think about. Apartheid was designed by Afrikaner psychologists who were organized, who had hundreds of millions, who were supported by government to have a psychopolitical warfare program that was called a crime against humanity.
Yes.
One of the people who presided over that government, who gave orders to kill Black people whose bones we still do not know, many of whom, those people whose souls we still do not know. Yeah. Those people, one of them who was presiding over that got a Nobel Peace Prize and shared it with Mandela, who spent 27 years away from his family. These are cold facts. Yeah. One of them. Now, what did we expect as a country, when you do that? Because we are basically saying what de Klerk did is equivalent to what Mandela did. Njani, when Utatu Mandela lost his family, Utatu Mandela, you must understand why he started Nelson Mandela Children's Fund. Mama Ubongi Mkabela will tell you a story of kids in Cape Town who went to say, Tata, why you stand up? This is three kids. Utatu Mandela took a third of his salary as the president of this country and Funimali publicly, Bill Clinton, Wakala Nelson Mandela Children's Fund, because one of the things that we do not talk about is the trauma that apartheid caused Utatu Mandela. No unguthethe ibhe kube lungu balapha South Africa phela. Yeah. Kuthiwa apha South Africa makubekho reconciliation njani kukho injustice phela. There's more unemployment to Black young people than ever before. What do you expect? Black people who are professionals, Bele, I'm not asking you, I'm telling you, are on drugs because they can afford them. They are on prescription drugs, as you would know. They're on cocaine in Joburg so that they can enjoy the little bit. I know as a fact, Black women of this country, Bele, are categorized as the people who drink more than any other category, and everyone is not worried. When those Black women are the ones who are raising Black families, because Tina as a machita, we leave them or we kill them. Yeah. So like, unfortunately for me, that thing can be depressing when you know, and you can't talk to anyone, because I look around and I'm like, what is the agenda by Black men versus South Africa other than Chisanyam? Yeah. No agenda to pay as Black men. What is it? Do we have an agenda as Black men of this country? So when I'm involved in this work that I'm doing, I'm not involved because there's money. Like I've lost so much materially. Yeah. But I have gained so much at the same time because something I believed in 1999 when I was doing my master's. Yeah. What you got Stevens, a professor, one of the best who taught me. He called me, what Mteto? You always ask these questions. You are doing your honors. You are still doing your honors. That was 1998. learn and know how to diagnose using this mainstream diagnostic manual you don't like.
Yeah.
But once you learn that, you can always critique it because when you are raised to be a questioning person anyway. So I'm saying, Barry, what I'm doing for me is just coming full circle and just going bold.
Yeah.
It's got nothing to do with any reward other than the fact that if we do not do it, barely, no one is gonna do it, not even our government.
Yeah.
The strange thing is that the very same people are the same people who fought for freedom, some of them.
Yes, yes, yes. Now, we are, I mean, this past week, we woke up to news of somebody, you know, a young woman who was killed, 8 months pregnant, and hanged on a tree, you know. And this is just one of the many. I mean, September last year, it was Uyinene who was killed in a post office. Before then, there was Karabo who was burnt to ashes. So what I want to hear, you know, or know from you as a person who's trained in clinical psychology, what kind of person, and here we're talking about black males, you know, what is it that makes people to be so violent to an extent that you can actually kill an 8 months pregnant woman and hang that person on a tree?
I don't have an answer, Pele. Maybe the answer is gonna be something to think about for all of us, which is, if you watch what is happening in America, where there's evidence of white uniformed officers killing black people with no consequence, the question in denial for us as South African men is, since we understand racism and everything about racism, structural and whatnot, what is different from us? Kulama police lawa wase America. You understand? Like, kutiwa in South Africa, as we speak, a woman has greater chances of being killed by somebody they love, or they are in love, that they are in love with, or in order, than being killed by a car or being killed by a stranger, like in Jan.
Yes.
And the other South Africa, like,
which is why I was going back to the whole issue of these people who are doing these things. Don't we think it's some of the struggles that or turmoil that they have been going through, you know, over the years? Maybe not clinical, but, you know, bubbling under. And I'm not giving an excuse, and I'm not saying everybody who does wrong, but I'm just saying, don't you think that we've got a certain percentage of black males who are walking wounded from past stuff, whether it is growing up without a father, or they were abused as children, or whatever, which makes them to be these people who at a, you know, they can just change and become violent? And I'm asking you that question as a psychologist.
I phela ndizuyiphendula lo question like andizi, because that's like that's dangerous territory. I tell you why.
Yeah.
It's dangerous territory because it's a formulation that was advanced by Dr. Ndlozi.
Yeah.
You know, in a discussion we had at the Nelson Mandela Foundation on the same topic about what is it that we need to do. It's true that black men have been targeted by white oppression, like as a fact from slavery, like from the lynching to the current. I mean, there's no question about that, because the system has to incarcerate a lot of black men so that. But the point I want to make, which is very dangerous, is when we make that formulation on racism as black men, we need to be careful to imply, therefore, that racism happened to spare black women as if they didn't have to face it. No, that's not what you meant. That's not what you meant. But Classy formulated this thing of saying, no, black men were targeted and therefore they were called bars. I mean, they had to call white boys bars and whatnot. I am saying black women had to endure a lot worse for the same reasons that they were black and women. Now, I'm saying this so that Tina sees, but there's no excuse whatsoever, whether it's our own trauma or not.
Yes, but you see, when you were in that TEDx, you were saying there are unresolved issues.
Yes.
Right?
As a matter of fact, like we don't know, we know who pulled the trigger and killed Krisani.
Yeah.
And we know that moment of killing Krisani, how it was linked to the moment in 1994.
Yeah.
But we still do not know who gave the order. And there are people in this country who are applying for parole rightfully because we have the best constitution. You can imagine we've got people who were killers in the apartheid government, and I have not seen a single one of them, given that it was a crime against humanity. And if you compare to a Germany and what Germans are still doing, looking out for Nazis, even if they are 90, and you have white South Africans who still call us kafirs, we have to be enraged all the time as Black people. What must happen in this country? Must Black people go and kill? What? Because it's going to happen very soon. We are still killing Black people for now and say, it's Afrophobia, whatever it is. The anger is misdirected because Black men in South Africa are still scared of white people. That is why white men in South Africa are doing what they are doing.
Yeah.
And if you're talking about trauma and masculinity, you need to ask yourself what has happened to white kids who were taught by their parents that, in fact, Black people have no value, are subhuman, and those white people are adults now. Have those people stopped being racist? Have those people stopped benefiting from apartheid? South Africa is not having honest conversations about our trauma, whether between or in terms of intergroup or even amongst ourselves. Drugs of different.
Actually, I'm going to that because I mean, if you are saying there are unresolved issues,
yes,
and some of those may even be, multi-generational or intergenerational.
Yes.
And we're one of the countries that consumes by volume the most amount of alcohol. I think we are in the top 20 in the world and the top 5 in Africa. Now, alcohol makes you to escape reality. Now, we've just seen after the lifting of the ban of alcohol on the 1st, how much we went there and drowned our sorrows. So can you make a link there in terms of the unresolved issues and the amount of not just alcohol and other substances that people are using to escape?
Hey, Bele, just follow the money, babe. Who owns alcohol? Follow the money. You know why I'm no. The reason he boosts the pendulum like this.
Yeah.
People in this country have a way of misinterpreting things that people say, people like me who are outspoken, right?
Yeah.
So I don't want people to misunderstand what I'm saying to you. I'm gonna tell you something.
Yeah.
There is 1 year, the current president was the deputy president then of the country. Yeah. By virtue of being one of the things that is in your inbox when you are deputy president is that you chair South African National AIDS Council. Yeah. That has got 18 sectors. Long story short, I was one of the leaders of that sector. So we had a meeting him for the first time in the presidency. And I remember everyone was introducing themselves and I had written my notes. But Kaifika, chance ndavele ndabila apha ngaphakathi ndaqonda ayikho into ndiyibhale phantsi ndizayibuza upresident, can I just speak from my heart? I asked for permission from current president. Deputy president, can I speak freely? There are people who were there who can attest to that. Long story short, I made mention of indaba yotywala because then one of the young men I was mentoring, who's a rapper, was getting a contract from ikhampani yotywala izamfaka kwi-ad, but his value system doesn't agree with utywala as an artist, but he is unable to make a living as an artist from government structures and everything that is happening. The article president and your cabinet ministers, they go to events, supporting events as utywala, and yet we all know what alcohol does. Why are we not having this debate? Alcohol, I consume alcohol, I do drink wine, I do drink beer. I don't have a problem with alcohol being there. But I also know what alcohol has done. Social development is spending so much money because of alcohol. sorting things that should be sorted by us as family. So nathi as abantu, we have abdicated our dignity to government, and yet during the people shall govern. So I feel South Africa as a country is a country that is dead psychologically, that is just like a patient that is busy numbing itself, because we don't even see ourselves as Africans. The way we talk about it, you know, if there are people we should be upset with in this country as South Africans about what they have done, how much they have stolen from us, it's white South Africans.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? So if we are to talk about we are violent as a country, and I'm not inciting a race war, I'm just saying it doesn't make sense the amount of anger we have amongst each other, how easy it is to kill each other, you know, how easy it is to rape. Like, let me tell you a story. There is a woman in Tanzania, I think 2017, 2018, she's walking, she gets hit by a car, driven by a man. It's a hit and run. Then this guy hits her, and then Lucy, while she's unconscious, this guy takes the lady, throws her. Luckily, Usisi has survived. Then she crawls onto the road. She sees a group of guys. She calls for help. Guess what do? They rape her. They gang rape her, and they kill her. Her name was Veli Swatuba. Those men are walking amongst us, and they know each other. They tweet amongst us. Since rapists and killers are us, but we hide them, and no one. There's no consequence. The system, a person here rape up in Abu, they are repeated offenders. I mean, we watched River Steenkamp, broad daylight, and we all know what happened in our case. So I'm saying South Africa is a country that seems to expect to heal without dealing with the wound. I don't know how it's going to happen.
Yeah,
like
my next question is, seeing that you know and you see that there is a wound, how do we deal with this anger? How do we deal with this wound before it actually gets to a point where it affects the whole country? Because
personally, Bele, I am doing
everything at this moment, and you know, is a kapuk.
In fact, I think we're close to amputating one of the limbs. No, because things are bad, Bele. Like, you know, sometimes I talk Namachita, Bele. And I understand where they come from, because I know if Tina, we can create a space, one, for men to talk openly and honestly what is happening to them, what is hurting men. I don't think we are ready. I'm not making a case for them. They need to deal with that trauma. But what I'm saying is a preamble to what I'm about to say, so that people know that I sympathize with men. There are times I talk to men, Atamachita. No, but we're now Tetelela Bandwan. Like, you know, Banaspangil and the culture, we must provide. And if you can't provide, you can't even see your child. Wow. Yeah, and like, there's a lot of injustice that men are facing, but it's not from women. It's from patriarchy, that is the system 80. For you to value yourself, you need to have a job. There is that mentality that says, if you do not have a job, you then have no value. And that is a patriarchal thing, in the sense of, hey, then we must, and yet there's high unemployment, especially to the youth. So you are setting young boys to fail anyway before they become men, because to the extent that they cannot provide, one, they're not going to feel worthy about anything, even if they are good people in the community, even if they do community development, because the value we attach to goodness is linked to the material. So South Africa also has a problem with materialism.
Yeah.
Corruption and greed is not about stealing money that you have. I mean, like, if people are in power and they steal money meant for food parcels for the poorest people, that clearly is not about money. That is even more than a psychological problem. So what I'm saying is, in South Africa, I think we need to have very difficult, there are different groups of people who must have conversations of their own. Black men have to have conversations, Black Xhosa men have to have conversations, Muslim men, Jewish men, but we all need to have a conversation that says, what is it that we are doing to men who rape? Because that's it too, men are trash, and I understand it, right? And Amachita must understand that we've got friends and even lovers who are white, but racism has got nothing to do with them as individuals. Racism has got to do with what white people are doing as a collective, because even as black men who are facing racism, we don't worry about being raped. We worry about being raped mostly and only when we go to jail as black men.
Yeah.
And black women, they worry about being raped every day. They are not in jail. And these stats, the facts tells us, but they get raped by who? By us. So I'm not making this thing up, Belle. I'm just connecting the dots.
Yeah. All right. Okay, but now you went back to Mtanzania. You are now at the coalface. You are interacting with the guys on the ground. You are
I'm unemployed.
Yes.
I'm unemployed.
Yes. But you know, it's a sacrifice that you decided on because of your conviction about certain things that you need to address.
No,
now,
I didn't decide.
Wait. Now, you know, being frustrated, Uguti, as dealing with individuals as a clinical psychologist, you've decided now, Uguti, you want to go and heal communities, all right? And some of your ideas, wait. Some of your ideas, you are now, you know, trying to put them, you know, into practice lab. You are using umculo, for example, as a tool to heal, as a tool to raise conscience. You know, can you tell? Let's talk about that. You know, use of music, you know, to try and address social ills. You know, in the broader context of your passion to deal with social injustices.
Yeah, so music, Bele, is part of who we are as black people. I mean, there's a church, we sing, there's umchato, we sing, there's a birthday, we sing. You know, we've always sung, and we've got wars, you know, we sing, we've got burials, we sing. So umculo for black people is sacred. I'm umculo who is primarily done to entertain as a primary objective.
Yeah,
that's the first thing. The primary objective of umculo for black people was one, to express whatever is happening, whether it's pain at that moment, and to reflect it.
Yeah.
But also to remind people of the moment in time. That's why you have hymns like Liza Lise Tingalako, you know, and I have remixed that song, like in terms of the song for now as a hip hop artist. Even hip hop itself, if you look at how it started in America, it was a voice that was a socially conscious voice. If you listen to Tupac, you must Google Tupac interview at 17. You listen to Tupac, he had a conception of things that were beyond his age because he was a rapper. And today, rappers, they sound the same, the beats, they sound the same, they make lots of money, and they're detached from that. So I am not doing anything new. That's what I'm saying. Reggae music, even jazz,
but you are using music to raise issues, something that has always been done. And you go by the stage name of Indlobongela. And I mean, I listened to one of your songs around issue suicide. And there's also another one that deals with issues of corruption. Just to show people just some of the things you talk about in your rap music or in your hip hop music.
Bele. Is suicide, first of all, people can Google this. The World Health Organization, if you read their 2013 to 2020 action plan, mental health action plan from the World Bank, their website, you will see there that they estimate 800,000 people who get killed who die of suicide annually. 800,000. That was before Corona, right? So obviously that number is high now. Secondly, suicide is the second biggest killer then of young people between ages 15 to 29. So these are cold facts.
Commit more suicide than
Suicide than, yes, you know, and again, it's linked to this thing which we are violent and all. It's not like I want to advance, but there is a better way of committing suicide. I think it's quite tragic that suicide becomes an option in the first place. Like people get so desperate, given whatever that they are going through, they get helpless and then they get hopeless. Hopelessness is the main marker or the main predictor of whether or not people will get suicidal. I know that clinically, but I also know in practice, but I also know theoretically, and I also know as a person who has been suicidal a couple of times.
Yeah.
Personally, like, so I know that clinically, but even the people that I've worked with and was part of helping them to understand suicide, I realized that it says a lot about us as the people left behind, that the people who take their own lives choose to leave this earth because of what they are going through. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to flip our focus not on the person who kills themselves, because we can never do a psychological autopsy that is accurate, because that person would have to tell us themselves to say. But what I do know, though, especially from the psychodynamic kind of thinking in psychological theories, you find this agreement that there are unconscious wishes that a person has when they consider suicide. There's a wish to die, and there's a wish to kill, and the wish to be killed, but that's unconscious, theoretically.
Yeah.
So suicide always has a trigger, has a moment, and sometimes there are clues that we get from what people leave behind. But for me, what I want us to focus on, and I'm only doing this because I know you know of Professor Nonga. Yeah. Professor Nonga is one of the most brilliant people in the world.
Yeah.
Professor Nonga marched with students during Fees Must Fall and the PhD gown yakhe.
Nobongani did the same UCT.
You know,
late professor.
I mean, sorry. I'm actually sorry, not to Professor Nonga. Professor, sorry. Yes, I mean Professor Nonga, no Professor Mayos. Those are black men I look up to. That's what I'm saying. Like those are people. I'm like, yo, I want to be that psychologist that is gonna be these guys in their field. You know what I mean? Like, so I know of what Professor Mayosi has done from a distance, like many people who don't know him personally. Yeah. But when he took his life, I asked, what option do we have? If a person who loved his family, whom we knew and we saw loving his family, who had so much for him globally, who was succeeding, what is it about that institution called University of Cape Town that made Latata a bit depressed to a point of being so desperate to take his own life? And we don't talk about that. And we must act as if everything is okay. If Utata Umayosi took his life, what about the guy who's unemployed, Tanzania, who has no prospects of being employed because to get employment by day is difficult? Now we have a pandemic, a global pandemic.
Even gonna be worse.
So when I wrote that song, I would prefer not to perform that song or to recite, because I get like it's a sore point for me, even for me personally, because I don't like the fact that in this country, in this country, how many black students have killed themselves in these universities?
Yes.
And who has said, hey, wait a minute, hey, but we don't do that because there's evidence every day of a woman, whatever, you know, like I don't even want to be on social networks now. So I guess for me, being in Lobongela allows for me to just allow my spirit to speak like I'm speaking with you, because as a psychologist, I need to have decorum, I need to be polished and all that nonsense. And like I need to be frustrated, you know, and like mess with my sensibilities because I want to be accepted. I mean, psychologists in this country, barely. There are psychologists who've been talking to other people, including my family, saying, I've lost my mind. Jani, when I'm doing what we should all be doing, we know that psychology is not for us. In fact, if there's anything now, what I said in 2018 and I left. I said, this psychology is not going to work for Black people. I said, COVID. How are we helping people who cannot protect themselves and have masks like you and I? I mean, I say I'm unemployed, but look at my mask. Look at the jacket that I'm wearing. Like, I'm highly privileged, so I must not talk nonsense here and act as if I'm poor. There are people barely, as we speak, who have to eat by leaving their homes. There is no transportation. Everything is expensive. In Tanzania, there was a video where even my mother was glad.
Yeah.
People have to eat or die.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm doing what I have to do, Napel. I'm not even scared of COVID. I'm not reckless, but I'm not scared of COVID. I am scared of the lack of ideological commitment from our leaders. I am scared of the lack of ideological commitment from Black people. I am scared of the fact that you're gonna see Black men twerking because they want a PlayStation.
Yeah.
I would rather have Black men twerking for the gay brother who was killed in Cape Town. I would rather we twerk for that as heterosexual men and say, okay, even if I'm a hip hop head and one of the dope poets that I am, even though whatever, delay timing, why can't I twerk for the gay guy and the fucking lipstick? If we have to twerk, why is it twerk for a PlayStation? I mean, why is South Africa there is a lot to talk about, but I don't want to mess your people. Like in the womisha, khona womisha, must deceive.
No. We are more because I wanna get to that point.
Tabo.
No. You are in the Eastern Cape. You are in the Buffalo City municipality.
By the way, I applied for 350. If I get Pakwasas and Fune in the order at 42.
Yes, no, that's good. That's good. So, I mean, you are painting a situation where, there's a lot that needs to be done. And in this country, now, when you talk about mental health, as a country, we are not prioritizing mental health as a country. And it's been like that even before the new South Africa. At this moment, we are not spending more than 5% of the national health budget, on mental health. Yet every prediction, is that we are going to have a bigger load of mental health challenges in the country. By 2030, we will be seeing a lot of that. So as somebody who is a professional within that space, but a professional now who has chosen to get immersed at community level, just your thoughts about that, South Africa. What should South Africa be doing in terms of prioritizing the issue of mental wellness and mental health of its citizens?
Quickly, Bele, mental health, Kala, not according to me, according to the World Health Organization. You can Google this. It's defined, if I'm correct, there are 3 components that I want to share. One, mental health has got something to do with the potential, you pursuing your potential.
Yes.
Secondly, you must deal with your day-to-day challenges, right? And then thirdly, you must be involved in your community. Yeah. So now, if you take those as components to determine whether you are mentally healthy, you then deduce that, okay, there is no promise of not having challenges day to day, but you must be able to deal with them. Yeah. So if people are unable to deal with their challenges, as we see with the high rate of alcoholism, high rate of because then clearly as mentally healthy, if you see the disconnection we have with our families, in our lives, or even especially with our communities. Look at the Eastern Cape, for instance. There is no province in this country that has produced more political leaders than the Eastern Cape. That's a fact. That's the cold fact. And now people even want to distort the history of the ANC in terms of wanting to minimize the role of the ANC in the Eastern Cape because it benefits certain other people in the ANC factional battles to have the Eastern Cape in Avani bed. Why Eastern Cape? So like number goes to education, considering our history with education of private schools and the forte in the political, it doesn't make logical sense or it's not rational. We are the only province that has had 2 presidents. Zasetranskei, Etucha Nasekunu, the radius, the distance between Tatu Mbeki and Tatu Mandela, and yet Mtata, and I say this not having any stake because I'm not from Transkei, okay? And this is that airport should have been long ago, and Nelson Mandela International Airport, so that the tourism you can create jobs, so that the OR Tambo is not poor. If there, why are our leaders not making that? It's a joke. You fly from Mtati to Zimbabwe. I mean, we have to Nigeria, go to Joburg. I worked there, I knew. So I'm just saying we've got people who are given an authority to lead. I do not know what they are doing. Is 222. In 2020, when they've got unlimited budget. Barely, let me tell you one thing, Nabel. I love black people more than any organization or any person. I was telling my mother came to visit me because there are people who are telling my mother, hey, unyana wako, she lives as Lalin. So see, we are chatting. So I'm talking to my mom. I'm like, okay, cool. So would you rather when I focus on our home, if on the grand, when in fact, when you taught me the value, and next door. In fact, and next door, so that the reason why I could even go to school is because when I was told next door. So how I'm not gonna care about other people who don't have the privilege that I have. Why is the education here to by black people is about showing off the SMEG appliances? This is and the foods that we post. What have we done to the schools? Why are we taking our children to the same racist schools? The apartheid. Why can't we have private schools in Tanzania and Soweto? Take all these kids who are paying 7,000 in Clarendon or wherever there's racism. We invest because as so that Zingavalo. I mean, I'm not a leader, but as a thought leader, why can't those things are logical? There's an MEC of education here. Why can't the MEC talk to Lesotho and say, yo, Lesotho, how do you do these things? That's what I'm saying. I performed. MEC Lusufi knows me. I performed after him in Soweto. He opened the school in Soweto. To his credit, his office gave me 1,000 rand for my troubles. At least I got paid for my petrol. I told those kids in Soweto, Bele, Banatina, Sealila, Eastern Cape, Iskolo Ziavalwa. Iskolo is not a school because government gave you a school. Iskolo is a community-owned institution. If there are abantu who are drug dealers and gangsters in that community, their job is to make sure they agree that that school, there are no people who sell drugs in that school. Secondly, they agree that there's no kid who's going to be seen. Lloyd, gangsters have done this thing in Harlem for Harlem Children's Home. There's a guy by the name of Jeffrey Canada. His book is called Fist, Stick, Knife, Gun. Check it out, Harlem Children's Home. People are working in Harlem. They've got psychologists, social workers, people, nutrition, computer, abandon. Why can't we do that? Take our skills, pay umthetho, because I'm in the cold face of this thing, and yet we apply in the order. Why can't people say, oh, okay, umthetho TV show, a village shrink? That is, by the way, still playing and getting repeated. Why can't that show be on SABC? If that show is there because it was funded for by National Department of Health, why is that show on SABC? So that I can talk about these things, because people need to talk about these things. So
maybe you need to be like me and not depend on anyone and set up your own channel.
I agree, except that data is bread, butter, and data issues.
All right. Now, the last one. Again, as I was going through your timeline, I saw a picture of late Isanusi Credo Mutwa, who passed away just before the lockdown. And I was quite interested, you're saying you are in a spiritual journey. Could your spiritual journey, include the African spirituality matters? And here, I don't want people to label what the African spirituality means, but just the belief that there is a God, there are the middlemen called ancestors, or the living dead, and then there's us here on earth. That's the core of, the African belief system. It manifests in many ways, so you don't have to be Igriha or Rubeni Kwele, but just the belief system. So I just want to understand, do you, because I pick up, there's a lot of Africanism within you, and I pick up snippets of what I think has to do with African spirituality. Your thoughts?
My name is Mteto Chemes. There is a Christopher in between because of apartheid.
Yeah.
I am an African man. I speak a language called isiXhosa in a particular place called Impumakapa.
Yeah.
So it's not like my spirituality includes Africanism. My spirituality is Africanism. It's like it's a no-brainer to me. Like, so.
But in the majority of Black people, we dissociate ourselves, or see jongele by into yabantu abangamakaba.
It explains our problems. In South Africa, if you ask me if South Africa, as I had alluded to, if South Africa is if it were to be a patient, what the diagnosis would not be a psychological diagnosis. It would be a spiritual diagnosis, and I'm not a competent preacher.
Yeah.
But I can speak on spirituality because I am better than the preachers as abantu ngeDum. Andikathuzuza ngadum na, andikatshisa indusele or nditye imali yakhe ndibe millionaire in the name of God. You understand? So at least I can speak on spirituality because God in the Bible of Christians, I don't know the verse, but there is a place, God hates people who mock the poor.
Yeah.
So these preachers, they are mocking the poor. These politicians are mocking the poor because the policies are there, but the implementation is there. Even people like myself who then innovate, because besides what I'm doing, you will see on Facebook, there's a last part, I'm an entrepreneur.
Yes.
I am an entrepreneur, pure business, like, as you know, like hard numbers, profit making, but it's African in the sense about how do you cut the slice? Who do you bring? Who benefits? How? Guess what? The bottlenecks are government, even though it's easy. So I'm saying, what I'm talking about, I'm not talking about a theoretical thing.
Yeah.
To prove that I'm an African, barely, I have a job as we speak, an offer.
Yeah.
To go and work in Uganda.
Yeah.
On a project that I conceptualized. The project is called Lumculo Liyeza. In Uganda, when I talked to them, when I went there last year and wrote a song, Nabantu baseKhansanga, iKhansanga ifana nasesiphunzana ke. Phakosi, I went there, banjonga namashita awana electricity, but they are damn talented. We made a song called Dalalwachi, which says, but why? Ithi la ngoma Africa vuka vundla, zibheke qula, omila maqula, asikwazi nonqula. Ugosogoso, impesika, imibhungisa, izazela zenu madoda. Ndiyazixhola ndizixhokonxa, lo msebenzi uthanda ungcotsha, izanocima ngosixhaphaxhapha, kwizidlwengu masibe rhabaxa, eKinshasa, Mogadishu naseKhansanga, siyanqophisa, sinivundlisa, sinintluvisa. Ndiyanivuselela, iyahamba le nqwelo khwela, madoda masingatye amacwaka amanina entywizisa, kwizidlwengu, nasi izidlwengu, uxhuluxhukwana, amanini, yo ayantywizisa. Sendisitsho ubana phele, this is no gimmick. You understand? Like, this is my life.
You are actually living your belief.
I have a job in Uganda, but I'm speaking to an MEC of Arts and Culture who came to my thing. I've got pictures with her. She supported me at UCT. I was called at UCT and given an honor of doing a masterclass last year.
The positive.
Our MEC, yes, our MEC came, was the first person to come. She supports what we are doing. But I don't have a job, even though she knows. I mean, she told people in ICC, Mavata, one of the filmmakers, told me, hey, Fredman, yeah, our MEC, what do you mean? No, MEC, we have respect. And what do you mean? No, we are filmmakers. The MEC was asking, Nizi filmmakers, why don't you write stories about Abana Bafana Nomteto who've got funny stories that you can document and ask what you're asking me, Ben? Guess what? The MEC's office didn't invite me in the same space where she's affirming me. Do you know how she's asking that question? Because I sent her a WhatsApp that a former content officer at CNN is interested in my story. I am not making this up. But at home, I do, my work is there. It's there for everybody to see. It's on the dispatches wherever. But like there's a stadium in my community with the team. No, people are saying I'm mad.
Yeah.
People are saying I'm mad. I don't blame them.
Yeah.
Because what has been normal is the abnormal. I'm unshackling myself. For me, I just want to do what I want to do because in that community, let me tell you something you don't know. There's a guy in my community by the name of Usamkelo. Usamkelo passed on, which is where Oscar Mabuyane, our premier, comes from. Usamkelo, where was she illegal? Why interpret a court something? Do you know Usamkelo growing up played ball better than Lionel Messi? I saw it with my own eyes. That's why his son, who's 17 or 18, Ubongo, plays for SuperSport United and is playing for our under 17. That's why Onge from the same community went to Kaizer Chiefs, to Arthur, to his credit. One trial, everybody could see a striker when they had problems, a striker. These kids are from there. That's why Unhlanhla has got only 4 fights and he's a South African champion after that. That place, is because of us as Masculinity innovators. We have individuals, Papa 7, that have been working hard, not for money. Government knows, the premier knows, all the MSCs, they know. So, asinamali, kuthiwa ke vele iproblem yethu asigoba ibotyo andizuyigoba ke ibotyo ke vele nanini na asiyekuyeka.
Yeah, we need to wrap up now our discussion. But
Yes.
you know, it's Youth Month.
Yes.
On Tuesday, June 16, there's a focus on youth in South Africa.
Yeah.
What message do you have for the youth of South Africa?
Zayifaka pha le message pha ikhona ingoma ethi live your dream.
Yes.
Ithi la ngoma masiphicothe uchungechunge olumuncuko umcuku sicinge ngocoselelo sichaze ngaphandle kocuku nakubeni izimuncuka kade sondela na uzozivela kusidingo soyelezela. This generation can't have the legacy yosolimsila njengembila. Not time for platitudes when black youths are jobless in multitudes. Ezilokishini akho themba ulutsha luzintyintya ngepatyutyu amantombi noogqabsusu azipitsa ngogabshungu utshayo letsufu ludushe ingxushungxushu sisifungufungu sokuphila ekasi uhleli nje unedyutyu. Home of the legends kwezemfundo singunamba qhutsu nyaka nonyaka yinyakanyaka xa sithelekiswa ngamanye amaphondo zihamba brutsu. Elixa eRhawutini besithi huntshu kudlwa bhiya sithi dyumpu. So ndithi ke ngoku to young people, fill up your life with passion, cherish your inner essence and live your dream. System inzima, I know, as Lukshin, I know it's very tough, but drugs, that doesn't help you, doesn't do anything. Let's organize, let's meet, let's find solutions, let's talk a lot more, let's support each other, but also let's go and demand our services. I mean, let's take back what belongs to Abantu. I mean, there should be street committees, but Abantu mabanga expect everything to come from government. It's not government only la abulale Abantu, it's us.
Yeah. So if we focus the next 5 years, Umteto Chemese, where will he be? Obviously, you don't know the future, but where would you like to be in 5 years from now?
Well, I like where I am. I'm not thinking about where I'd like to be in 5 years' time. There's a global pandemic as we speak.
Yes.
So I like the fact that we're having this conversation. I think if there's one thing I really pray for is to see the big dreams manifest that we have as Masculinity innovators. We've got some fantastic ideas. We've got people who are passionate about school and education. We've got people who just are passionate generally about making money that is going to get invested in our churches. We want to speak with one voice. The churches, even the gangsters, because abantwana babe motivated and abantwana babe ngabantwana, they must have the facilities. And in Nati, we must look after the facilities as a band. I think I just want to, if I were to be practical, I'm amending my PhD proposal now. I want to submit it to certain people. I want them to supervise me. And then I want to link that to Makerere University and I want to be linked to African studies in Harvard. There are people I'm talking to there. They are keen on this thing. And I'm hoping that Jay-Z, when he said on CNN that therapists must go to schools, the fact that I'm taking my work and my ideas and my training and my expertise to school using hip hop, I hope Jay-Z is going to give me that call. Afande umasikule, so that's been the man.
Well, there's nothing wrong with dreaming, because they do come true, you know.
And I'm hoping the president is going to call me and we can have this conversation.
I'm sure one of his support staff is watching. I saw, you know, so maybe that information may just get there, you know.
No, listen, let me tell you something, Pele. Yabona u-artikeleba.
Yeah.
U-artikeleba park office ka president. Hey mom, umama ka Arti. Let me tell you something ongayaziyo. My daughter, her godmother is Artie's mom. So Artie knows how much I love this. So I've been pleading, please guys, party. Bayoyika kalo Pele because ngithetha ngohlobo.
Now if you know, you must tone down certain things so that the message.
But honestly, Pele, like somebody, I mean, a lot of people called me after that thing.
Yeah.
And then one of my friends who's an educator, Osbo, who actually is teaching at Enobo.
Yeah.
Osbo said to me, Hotman, I feel you were pleading because Nama was worried by Ingati.
Yeah.
Ingati didn't wrong. But I mean, I really love our country, and Abantu, they know. I mean, the thing is, everybody knows when I pay. It's just that unfortunately, none of that in my own mother is my mother's mama. So Lendo, I don't
yeah. No. Then I think offline, we need to talk about, you know, Nale Indo Yasekai. It needs to be attended. Needs to be attended. And I will talk to my sibling to help you in that journey.
No, you man, Pele, like you. Nandiraj, Pele, man. And I just want to thank you, Pele. Thank you very much. And what people do not know, man, Pele, is that I was even crying on the phone. You know, because our country.
But anyway, thank you, Village Shrink. You know, you're doing great work. Yes, you have sacrificed material, but sometimes you need to sacrifice material so that you can get inspiration. I went through something similar, you know, around 99, you know, where I actually had to, you know, move in with my sister, you know. Yet when I look back at that point, that's actually where I got to know why I'm here on earth and what is it that I need to do. This is your season to actually, you know, take stock, and I'm sure you are going to bounce back, you know, to make a much bigger impact than before. So I am not worried about you. You are definitely going.
There's no bouncing back, Bell, and the grand.
No, when I say bouncing back, in terms of, you know, making a greater impact than what you are doing now.
Before. Yes. I receive
as a psychologist, but I'm talking impact in society broadly. You know,
I'm with you.
Looking at healing, you know, groups of people, society,
and myself too.
Yes, obviously, in the process of healing others, you are also gonna get healed. So, but I wanna thank you for, you know, giving me your 90 minutes.
Oh wow.
You know, it was supposed to be 60 minutes, but you know, because I like your brain. You know, it's unorthodox. It's you know, you're not a conformist. Sometimes when you're telecons, but there is truth in most of what you say. And so I just want to thank you, and I want to thank our viewers for, you know, for listening to, you know, our conversation that touched on many things. But at the end of the day, we love South Africa. And people like you, we must not lose them. You know, we need to make sure that we plug in and leverage the energy and the passion that you have for this country, so that tomorrow can be better than today. So I want to thank you and thank everybody else.
I just want to say, I get worried, gang. We are sebenza, Pele. please take some time off. I worry about you. I worry about you. Like you work so hard.
Yes.
How he say as long as now okay we train because I'm for no man I'm for no.
No. I do take time off. I do take time off. Thank you very much,
Wonderful.
guys. Thank you.
Wonderful.
But who's come on? That's okay. That's okay. All right. Thank you very much, man. And thank you to all our viewers who watched this long conversation. I hope you were able to pick up one or two things, you know, and apply those to your own lives and to the communities where you come from and see what difference you can make. So thank you for joining us. And thank you, Mr. Mteto.
Thank you, Butch.